Chapter 4209. Ah! Startled, he stumbled backward and fell to the ground. His eyes widened as he watched the woman turn into a monster and lunge at him. Her sharp claws were aimed at his heart. At that moment, he wanted to move, but his hands and feet would not listen to him. He could not muster any strength and could only watch helplessly. Whoosh! A sharp sword chi slashed through the air and hit the monster's shoulder, chopping off its hand. The monster roared, its sharp and ear-piercing voice resounding in the forest, echoing into the distance. After a while, the surrounding trees rustled in the wind, as if something was shuttling through the trees and shaking the leaves. It sounded like a howl with a hint of sharpness and chaos. It came from afar and came closer. As the sound came closer, the aura in the air also changed. What are you waiting for? Stand up. Fengjiu, who came out of nowhere, glanced at Wang Yu on the ground, then looked away and glanced around. He said, "Don't you want to practice? You can practice with these." Wang Yu's face turned pale. She asked, "What are these?" It was a woman just now. How could she? These are 1,000 illusion monkeys, also known as human-faced monsters. They are good at imitating humans and transforming into humans to hunt and kill prey. Fengjiu glanced at her and said, "They like to eat people's hearts the most." You saw through it just now?" Wang Yu asked, feeling a lingering fear. It was a woman, but who knew that it was a monster? This can be considered as your first lesson. Remember this lesson, especially in this forest. Don't pretend to be a good person. Fengjiu said lightly. Watching Leng Shuang deal with the 1,000 illusion monkeys, he called, "Leng Shuang, come back. Let him practice." Leng Shuang quietly retreated. Because the 1,000 illusion monkeys were afraid of them, they immediately changed their target and attacked Wang Yu. Wang Yu was shocked and immediately braced herself to deal with them. However, she had not recovered from the shock, and soon there were more than a dozen wounds on her body. Seeing that she could not resist alone, Fengjiu shook his head and said, "Go." "Yes." Leng Shuang responded and rushed forward to help. Not long after, the dozen or so 1,000 illusion monkeys died under her sword. Only 1 or 2 escaped in a sorry state. Wang Yu panted and sat down against a tree. She looked at Fengjiu and Leng Shuang and said, "Thank you for saving me. The more dangerous the forest is, the more monsters and fierce beasts there are. Some of them are even ones you have never seen before. So, the first thing you have to do here is to be alert. In addition to being careful, there is another thing. Don't meddle in other people's business. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died." Fengjiu said lightly. She stepped forward and said, "Let's go. This is not the real danger yet." Wang Yu stood up with lingering fear. Seeing that the two had walked ahead, she immediately adjusted her mood and quickly followed. Behind them, she could not help but ask, "Have you encountered this kind of monster before?" "Yes." Chapter 4210. Hearing what she said, Wang Yu could not help but feel a little embarrassed. Indeed, his state of mind and reaction were far inferior to theirs. If he was calm enough, he would not put himself in danger. He walked beside the two of them, silently reminding himself that he must not make such a mistake again. There was a rustling sound around, which made Wang Yu alert. He walked quickly to Fengjiu and said, "There seems to be some movement." Fengjiu glanced around and her eyes fell on one place, saying, "Well, there is a ferocious beast." Listening to her indifferent voice, Wang Yu's heart was in his throat. He held the sword at his waist with one hand and asked, "Is that a fight? Or an escape?" Fengjiu smiled and glanced at him, saying, "You fight, and we watch. Today's meat is all on you." "I know." Wang Yu replied, knowing that she wanted him to gain experience, so she said, "That tree is high. You go to the tree and rest. Let's go." Fengjiu said to Leng Shuang. He tiptoed, jumped to the tree, and sat down on a branch. Leng Shuang also followed him to the tree. She did not find a place to sit, but stood beside Fengjiu holding the tree. It seems that we are lucky today. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and looked at the half-a-man-tall beast pig with thick black hair. He raised the corners of his mouth and smiled. Ow! A beast pig with two curved teeth in its mouth rushed out with a howl and pounced on Wang Yu. Just then, another beast pig rushed out of the weeds behind Wang Yu. As the two beast pigs ran, the weeds on the ground were flattened. Each of them weighed about 150 kilograms, so the force of the collision was extraordinary. Wang Yu slashed forward with the sword in his hand, but found that when the blade fell on the beast pig, it made a clanging sound and sparks spurted out. The shock force shook him back a few steps. Ow! One of the beast pigs rushed forward toward Wang Yu, but after being dodged by him, it hit a big tree. With a bang, two deep marks appeared on the trunk of the big tree. Its reaction speed was not slow either. Seeing that it could not hit Wang Yu, it immediately turned back to attack again. The two beast pigs attacked Wang Yu from the front and the back. Because Wang Yu's sword could not hurt them at all, Wang Yu retreated step by step and was very embarrassed. Fengjiu just watched and did not take action. He saw that Wang Yu was overturned by one of the beast pigs, rolled on the flattened grass, and quickly jumped up. The sword in his hand was stepped on by one of the beast pigs. He immediately took out a dagger and pounced on it with a growl. Ah! He threw himself in front of one of the beast pigs, one hand grabbing its curved fangs, the other hand raising the dagger and stabbing towards its abdomen. Hiss! A mournful and hoarse squeal that sounded like a pig being slaughtered fiercely rang out. The beast pig that was still struggling suddenly knelt down with its front hooves. Its entire body fell onto the grass. Its mouth opened and closed as if it was gasping for air. Blood gushed out from its abdomen and quickly dyed its body red. Seeing this, Fengjiu raised the corners of his mouth and said, "You are not too stupid. You know that the beast pig's weakness is in its abdomen." Chapter 42:11. With the first success, it was much easier for Wang Yulai to kill the second boar. He used the same method to kill the second boar. Looking at the two ferocious beasts lying on the ground, he gasped, wiped his sweat, and looked up at the Fengjiu in the tree. "Ghost doctor, are we going to roast them?" Fengjiu smiled and nodded. "Yes, roast them. Roast them all and eat them on the way." "Well, I'll go and pick up the branches." He exhaled softly and dragged the two ferocious beasts aside. Then he went around to pick up some dry branches, lit a fire in an open space, and set up a fire. However, looking at the two huge ferocious beasts, he was a little powerless. In the past, it was his subordinates who did these things. He didn't know anything about dealing with ferocious beasts. He couldn't help but look at the Fengjiu in the tree. "Ghost doctor, how do we do this?" Seeing this, Fengjiu raised his eyebrows. "You don't know how?" "I didn't do it before. I just roasted meat, but I didn't deal with it." He was a little embarrassed to say this. "Leng Shuang, go down and teach him. Just tell him and let him learn." Fengjiu said, motioned, and lay down on the tree with his hands on his chest, planning to sleep for a while. Leng Shuang flew over, came to his side, and said, "Let's see if there's a water source nearby." "Okay." Wang Yu responded. After looking around and finding a water source, she quickly ran back and told Leng Shuang. Finally, under her guidance, he cleaned up the two ferocious beasts alone. He put the meat on the rack to roast. At this time, there was a leisurely rest time. He asked, "Do you often go to the forest to practice? I think you are very familiar with the way of survival here." "Yes." Leng Shuang was a woman of few words, but since he asked, she answered. Wang Yu was busy under the tree. When he saw the roast meat dripping with oil and exuding the aroma of meat, he cut a piece and tasted it. He felt that it tasted good, so he cut another piece and gave it to Leng Shuang. "It's done. Have a taste." Leng Shuang gave it a try and said, "Yes." As she spoke, she raised her head and her gaze fell on Fengjiu. Seeing that her eyes were closed, she called out, "Mistress, the meat is ready. Do you want to eat some?" The Fengjiu in the tree had actually woken up when the aroma of the meat spread. When it heard Leng Shuang's words, it sat down and jumped down from the tree, landing steadily beside Leng Shuang. Leng Shuang saw the smile, cut a piece of meat and handed it to it. "Mistress, have a taste." Fengjiu sat on the wood under the tree, smelling the roast meat, and then tore some to eat. He said to Wang Yu, "Good cooking. We'll rely on you for our food on the way." "Okay." Wang Yu responded with a smile, and also cut a large piece to eat to replenish the strength consumed. After eating the roast meat, the three continued on their way. It could be said that the pause was very short. Along the way, except for some ferocious beasts, they did not meet half a person. Wang Yu, on the other hand, had improved rapidly along the way. Chapter 42:12. Children were always so innocent and beautiful. However, they did not know what Fengjiu was doing at this moment. She had been gone for so long. Not only did the children miss her, but he also missed her. His longing for her deepened. He looked at the sky, and it was as if the person he was longing for was smiling at him amidst the white clouds. "Dad, Dad, Dad." A childish voice sounded softly and pulled Xianyuan Mo's back from his daze. When he came back to his senses, he saw the two children with open arms and innocent smiles on their pink little faces. They walked step by step unsteadily towards him. There was still a distance between them, but the little guys directly pounced on him. He was so frightened that he quickly reached out to catch them. "Ha ha ha ha." The two children pounced on him and rubbed against him. They giggled as if they were having a lot of fun. They tried to climb onto his lap but could not climb up. In the end, they stretched out their hands and shouted, "Hug, Dad, hug. Come, Dad will carry you up." He rubbed the two children's heads lovingly and reached out to carry them up to sit on his lap. Hui Lang walked in from outside and saw Xianyuan Mo's sitting in the courtyard with the two children. He asked, "Master, do you want to take the two little masters out for a walk today? To watch the fun?" "No, let them play in the manor," Xianyuan Mo said. He paused and asked again, "Is there any news about Zhou?" Hui Lang was stunned for a moment and shook his head. "No, Madam did not contact us. Even Fan Lin and the rest did not have any news about Madam." As soon as he finished speaking, he thought for a moment and asked, "Is Master worried about Madam? Do you want me to ask the servants to find out?" She did not send any news back. She should be fine. There is no need to ask. Xianyuan Mose looked at the two children in his arms and said, "If she finds them, she will come back earlier." However, even he did not know when she would come back. Not being able to wait for her return, he was even more worried that something would happen to the two children before she returned. Qin Xian and Bai Qingqing came in. They bowed to Xianyuan Mose and said, "Yama Lord, we'll take the little master to the front to play. We'll feed them some food later." "Okay, go ahead." Xianyuan Mose responded and gestured for the two of them to come forward and carry the two children. After receiving the two children, the two of them left. Xianyuan Mose waved his hand and motioned for Hui Lang to leave. She carried the children to the front yard. Leng Hua and the others were also there. When they saw the two children, they smiled and took the children over, playing with them. "Little Yu, take a look at what I've brought for you." Luo Yu's eyes narrowed as he smiled and took out a small plaything from his bosom. "There's one here too. Little Chen, look, this is for you." He took out another one and handed it to little Chen, who was being held by Qin Xian. "Go to the grass. Even if the little masters fall down, they won't feel pain. Qin said as she carried the child to the grass on the side. The few of them followed and spread a large piece of cloth on the grass. Then, they put the children down and let them crawl around and play with their toys. Chapter 42:13. The Yama Lord didn't let us use the communication jade token. They haven't sent us any news, so we don't know how they are doing. The Yama Lord is worried that the master will be distracted. I guess the one who misses the master the most is the Yama Lord. Luo Yu sighed and said, since the master left, the Yama Lord looked the same as usual. However, we can still see from his expression that if he wasn't worried about the two little masters, the Yama Lord wouldn't stay here to guard them. It's a pity that the two little masters are still young. Otherwise, we can take them with us to find the master. They are too young. It would be better if they were older. If they go to the forest, the humidity is too high, and they will easily get sick. Fan Lin looked at the two giggling children and said, now, we can only hope that the master can find an ancient mythical beast for the two little masters to contract as soon as possible. In this mansion, it was quiet and secluded, sometimes accompanied by the children's pure laughter. On the other side, in the Cyan Demon Forest, there was a lot of danger after night fell. Sitting by the fire, Wang Yu asked, Ghost Doctor, should we put out the fire? I'm worried that the fire at night will attract the ferocious beasts. The vision at night was not very good. Compared with the ferocious beasts, they couldn't see clearly. However, the fire was extremely dazzling, almost telling the ferocious beasts that they were here. Don't worry. Have a good rest tonight. No ferocious beasts will come near. Fengjiu said and patted the Tun Yun in his arms. Hearing her words, although he didn't believe it, he had no choice but to watch the surroundings vigilantly. If there was any movement, he would check it out. Fengjiu leaned against the tree and fell asleep. The Tun Yun in his arms was lying lazily. It glanced around, stretched, and continued to lie in Fengjiu's arms. Leng Shuang rested by the fire. She planned to keep watch at night, but after hearing the master's order, she fell asleep by the fire as if she didn't worry about the danger at all. Wang Yu didn't know that Fengjiu had left the aura of the ancient mythical beast around here. Even if the ferocious beasts were ferocious, they didn't dare to come close to this side. Therefore, they stayed far away, lurking and staring at Wang Yu and Fengjiu by the fire with bloodthirsty eyes. Although he was vigilant, there was no movement in the first half of the night. In the second half of the night, Wang Yu fell asleep in a daze. It was not until the next morning when the first ray of sunlight fell that he found that Feng Nine and Leng Shuang had already woken up and were sitting aside looking at him. At that moment, he hurriedly jumped up. Sorry, I was too tired last night and fell asleep. Get ready. We have to go on. There are a lot of ferocious beasts ahead. Fengjiu said faintly. Hearing this, Wang Yu cheered up. After answering, he casually ate something and followed them into the depths. However, after walking for a while, his whole body tensed up. Ghost Doctor, those ferocious beasts are following us. Wang Yu said and glanced around. He saw 20 or 30 ferocious beasts of all kinds. The bloodthirsty aura emitted from the ferocious beasts frightened Wang Yu. When the hell did this thing come? Why don't they attack us? Chapter 42:14. Hearing this, Wang Yu was stunned for a moment and could not help looking back. At this time, Leng Shuang explained to him, my master's contract beast is an ancient mythical beast. As long as she releases the ancient pressure, ordinary ferocious beasts will not dare to approach. The implication was to tell him why the 20 or 30 ferocious beasts stared at them but did not attack them last night. Leng Shuang and I are not strong enough to do this kind of training. You can have the opportunity. Fengjiu smiled and looked at Wang Yu, saying, you don't have many opportunities to practice. Don't miss this opportunity. Yes, I know. He knew that with their strength, there was no need for them to train. It was already very rare for them to be willing to bring him along. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had the chance to train in this place. After a pause, he asked, "Ghost Doctor, do we need to deal with those ferocious beasts?" In fact, he felt that it was almost impossible for him to deal with the 20 or 30 ferocious beasts by himself. He was not strong enough to do that. "No, what you need to do today is to keep up with us," Fengjiu said and walked forward. Leng Xuan saw this and followed her. Seeing this, Wang Yu, who was behind them, immediately calmed down and tried to catch up with them. However, when he caught up with them, he found that their speed had increased a lot, at least much faster than yesterday. He almost tried his best to follow them, but was still about 10 meters behind them. On the other side, Du Fan took Yi Feifei to practice in the forest, which was much easier than Wang Yu's. At this time, the two were resting under a tree. Yi Feifei was wearing a set of black clothes. This was the clothes that he had taken off before he set off, and he changed into it when he arrived here. The black clothes and skirt were less cumbersome, and it was more convenient for him to move around. It was more suitable for the clothes in the forest. Today, we will choose higher-level ferocious beasts to practice. You are familiar with martial arts and cultivation methods, but you still lack experience. Take this opportunity to practice. Du Fan looked at Yi Feifei and said. "Okay, Brother Du, I will work hard." She responded. Taking advantage of the rest time, she closed her eyes and sat cross-legged to adjust her breathing. At the same time, she practiced the attack techniques he taught her in her mind. Seeing this, Du Fan stood up and looked around. He then looked up at the sky. After a while, he asked her to follow him and the two of them continued walking. After walking for some distance, Yi Feifei looked at the ground under his feet and then looked ahead. He was slightly surprised and said, "Big Brother Du, there are footprints on the ground, and there seems to be someone talking in front. Are we going to the front?" "Yes." Du Fan replied and walked forward with light steps. As she walked further and further away, she could faintly hear the rough voice. Yi Feifei looked ahead and saw that it was a group of mercenaries. They were all wearing the same mercenary uniform, and some of them were bare-armed, revealing the messy old and new wounds on their bodies. Some of them had scars on their faces and looked very fierce. They sat in a circle, eating large pieces of beast meat in their hands. Perhaps they noticed the movement, so they quickly grabbed their swords and stood up, staring at the newcomers vigilantly. "Who are you?" Chapter 42:15. Du Fan's gaze swept across them. After secretly sizing them up, he cupped his hands and smiled. "Hello everyone, we are loose cultivators who are training in this forest. When we saw someone, we thought of coming over to take a look." "Loose cultivators?" The man who spoke stared at the two of them and sneered, "Aren't you a little too bold? You dare to come here with just the two of you? Don't you know what this place is? Furthermore, I reckon that you're stronger than the rest, but this lady is so weak. How dare she come here? Are you courting death?" Du Fan smiled and said, "Actually, I wanted to ask you about the ancient nine-tailed spiritual fox in the Azure Demon Forest. Is that true? You should be more familiar with the Azure Demon Forest. Have you heard of it or seen it before?" "Ha ha 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 ha, so you're here for the ancient nine-tailed spiritual fox." One of the men raised his head and laughed. Then, he stopped laughing and looked at Du Fan. "Your appetite is not small. You're actually here for the ancient nine-tailed spiritual fox. However, I advise you not to waste your time. That ancient mythical beast is not something that anyone can see just because they want to. Let's not talk about you. Even we, who frequent the Azure Demon Forest, have never seen the ancient nine-tailed spiritual fox." Another mercenary said with a smile, "That's a mythical existence. Even if there is one, it would be in the depths. This place is far from the depths. How could an ancient nine-tailed spiritual fox appear here? Hearing this, Du Fan cupped his hands and smiled, "Thank you for the information. We'll take our leave first." As he spoke, he was about to walk forward with Yi Feifei. At this moment, a mercenary called out to them. "Hey, young man over there, I advise you to change your direction and go in another direction. You can't go forward." Hearing this, Du Fan stopped and asked, "Why can't we go forward?" The mercenary glanced at Du Fan and Yi Feifei before saying, "The area ahead is the Azure Wolf mercenaries' area of activity. Those people only know how to rob. If you go there, you might not be able to return alive." He reminded them. He thought that they would turn back or change directions, but he didn't expect that the man would smile and thank him before continuing to walk forward with the woman. "These two are really not afraid of death," the mercenary said and shook his head. Seeing that they were not afraid of death, he did not want to poke his nose into their business. Come, let's eat meat," they shouted, not paying attention to Du Fan, and continued to eat. As they walked forward, Yi Feifei was a little worried. "Big Brother Du, those mercenaries said that there are people from the Green Wolf mercenary group up ahead. Do you think we'll meet them?" Du Fan smiled, turned around to look at her, and said, "Aren't you here to gain experience? Scared? It's fine if you don't run into them, but if you do, you can use them as practice." "Me? Can I do it?" she said uncertainly. She could take on a mercenary group alone? That was not possible. "Don't worry, I'm here. I won't let you be in danger. However, in that kind of battle, it's the fastest way to improve your strength. Moreover, if we kill them, other than harming them, all their valuables will be ours." Chapter 42:16. Thinking back to when they were training, Du Fan smiled and said, "We suffered a lot, much more than you are now. We often encountered those robbing mercenaries in the training forest. After we got rid of them, we also gained a lot of good things." Du Fan told her about his past training with Fengjiu as they walked. They did not see many beasts, nor did they meet the Green Wolf mercenary group. They found a place to rest when the sky darkened. Under the night sky, the bonfire burned. The branches crackled in the flames, and the sounds of insects and beasts could be heard. Yi Feifei rested by the bonfire. With Du Fan by her side, she slept peacefully. However, she was startled awake when she heard the faint sound of swords clashing in the night. "What's wrong?" Du Fan looked at her and asked. "I heard the sound of swords clashing, and screams." As Yi Feifei spoke, he stood up and looked around, but he couldn't tell where the sound came from. Du Fan poked at the bonfire with a branch and did not pay attention to it. He only said, "There is no lack of killing in this place. Every day, the law of the jungle is played out. Whether it is man against man, beast against beast, or man against beast, only the strong can survive. The weak can only be killed." Yi Feifei bit her lip and looked at him. "Big Brother Du, are we not going to take a look? What can we do if we take a look? Can you save them?" Du Fan asked and looked up at her. Yi Feifei lowered her head and did not speak. With her strength, she could not save anyone. Du Fan stood up and said, "So, you have to work hard to cultivate and become stronger. When you are as strong as us one day, if you want to save someone, you don't have to ask for my permission. You can save them yourself." As he spoke, he walked into the night sky. "Let's go." Yi Feifei was overjoyed when she saw this and quickly followed him. She knew that Big Brother Du was only stubborn with his words, but he had a good heart. The two of them pushed aside the weeds and trees, and only stopped when they saw the scene in front of them. There were more than 20 corpses on the ground, and 3 young men and 2 young women were tied up. In addition, 2 middle-aged men were also tied up. Because of the cover of the night, they were not discovered by those people standing behind the trees. Therefore, they also sized up those people. Big brother Do, are these the Green Wolves mercenaries that the mercenary from before mentioned? Yi Feifei asked in a low voice. Judging from their clothes and armbands, it should be them. Du Fan replied, then continued, the ones who were captured should be the people from the clan who came to gain experience. The two middle-aged men are not weak either, but they were drugged and did not have the strength to resist. The young boy and girl who were tied up should be the disciples of those clans. Yi Feifei looked and asked in confusion, why didn't those mercenaries kill them? For people like them, some mercenaries will capture people with status like them and ask for their families to pay a ransom. They can make a fortune out of it. Du Fan looked at those mercenaries and saw that there were more than 40 of them. In his opinion, their strength was not much, but they could be used by Fei Fei to practice. Chapter 42:17. Ah! Yi Feifei was startled by the sudden push and instinctively cried out. However, he quickly adjusted himself as he flew out. His spiritual power surged as he drew his sword and attacked one of the mercenaries. The sudden exclamation startled those people. The mercenaries shouted, "Who is it?" But they only saw a woman in a tight suit rush out, her long sword stabbing towards them. The nearest mercenary saw that it was a woman and couldn't help but sneer, "So it's a woman. Could it be a fish that slipped through the net? I'll take care of it." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure rushed towards Yi Feifei. During this period of time, Yi Feifei had been practicing martial arts and mental cultivation methods. Many of his attacks had almost become instinctive. Therefore, when he saw the mercenary attacking, Yi Feifei turned the sharp sword in his hand and a sword flower immediately shot out. Xiao xiao. Several cold sword chi flew towards the mercenary. The speed was so fast that the mercenary was a little overwhelmed. However, the mercenary had the advantage of being stronger than Yi Feifei and had quick reflexes. He immediately turned his body to the side and rolled on the ground before jumping up again. Feeling a slight pain on his face, he wiped it with his hand. When he saw the blood on his fingers, his aura suddenly became ruthless and gloomy. "Bitch! See if I don't kill you!" The mercenary angrily cursed. He took out the large knife at his waist and quickly slashed at Yi Feifei. Seeing the blade coming at him, Yi Feifei quickly dodged. The sharp sword in his hand turned and pierced through the opponent's shoulder at a speed that was too fast for one's ears to hear. Hiss! The mercenary hissed and swung the large knife in his hand upwards. At the same time, he lifted his leg and kicked Yi Feifei away. "You're courting death." Bang! With a bloodthirsty roar, his foot landed on Yi Feifei's abdomen. With a bang, Yi Feifei's entire body was thrown back several meters. At this time, the mercenary covered his bleeding wound with one hand and walked forward with a ferocious face. "Old 10, this little girl is hot enough. Her looks are also pretty, and her figure is also not bad. Let's keep her for a while before killing her." A mercenary shouted, telling him not to kill Yi Feifei yet. Hearing those words, the mercenary who was about to swing his sword retracted his hand and sheathed the sword at his waist. He stepped forward and grabbed Yi Feifei's collar with one hand and pulled her up from the ground, raising his other hand to slap her face. "Bitch! You dare to hurt me? I'll cripple you." Hiss! As soon as he finished speaking, he saw the woman who was lifted by him throw his hand behind her. When he turned around, before he could react, the sharp dagger had already slit his throat. Blood spurted out like a fountain. His eyes were wide open as he stood there stiffly. His face was filled with unwillingness. Bang! Yi Feifei pushed the man away and the corpse fell to the ground. Only then did the surrounding people react and exclaim, "Old 10. Kill that woman. Kill her." Several figures rushed forward. The sharp blades in their hands were filled with killing intent as they attacked Yi Feifei. Yi Feifei turned around and put the dagger back into his boots. At the same time, he took the opportunity to pick up the long sword on the ground and quickly faced the attacks. Chapter 42:18. He did not make a move. Instead, he watched her exchange blows with those mercenaries. Gradually, her physical strength could not keep up, and her attack speed also slowed down. Once her speed slowed down, in the blink of an eye, her body was cut several times by the other party's swords and sabers. Yi Feifei only felt pain when the swords cut through her clothes. Her black clothes were cut open, revealing a defensive garment underneath. Because of the defensive garment, even when the swords cut through her body, she wasn't injured. One of the mercenaries saw this and narrowed his eyes. The large sword in his hand slashed towards her neck, his sinister voice filled with bloodthirsty killing intent. Die! As his voice fell, his broadsword also chopped down. Because Yi Feifei had blocked the attacks of the other mercenaries, in addition to the battle, she had used up a lot of her physical strength. At this moment, she was exhausted. When she turned back to look, she could only see the large sword descending, but she couldn't avoid it. It was also at this moment that Du Fan, who was hiding in the dark, flashed out from behind the trees. With an extremely fast speed, he grabbed Yi Feifei's waist. At the same time, he waved the fan in his hand, and a strong wind accompanied by pressure attacked, sending the few mercenaries flying. Bang! Bang bang! Ah! The sound of bodies crashing to the ground was accompanied by their screams. In the night, the man who suddenly appeared gave them a fright. They thought that there was still an ambush in the dark. In an instant, dozens of mercenaries were on high alert. There's still an ambush. Everyone be careful. Du Fan hugged Yi Feifei and stabilized her body before letting her go. He looked at the mercenaries and said to Yi Feifei, who was beside him, watch carefully. As soon as he finished speaking, he moved his feet and his figure rushed out like a ghost. The fan in his hand opened with a swoosh and he attacked the mercenaries. Hiss! Ah! His actions were extremely fast, and the moment he attacked, the fan in his hand was aimed at the mercenaries' fatal spots. Those mercenaries didn't even have time to react before they died under his fan. Wherever he passed, the ground would be filled with corpses, and the thick smell of blood would spread in the air with the night wind. Du Fan was like an azura reaping the lives of those mercenaries. Those mercenaries who possessed decent strength simply didn't have the slightest ability to resist. All of them were like fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Yi Feifei's eyes lit up as she watched. Du Fan's speed was extremely fast. That footwork and attack style were all taught to her by him. However, even if she was familiar with it, she was not proficient enough to use it as freely as him. She couldn't help but smile as she watched the mercenaries die one by one without being able to put up any resistance. Big Brother Du's so powerful. He's so strong. The people who were tied up were stunned, especially when they saw Du Fan kill those mercenaries alone. They were so shocked that their eyes widened and their faces were filled with disbelief. The fan slashed the last mercenary's throat. Seeing the mercenary die with his eyes wide open, Du Fan narrowed his eyes and put away the fan in his hand. He turned to look at Yi Feifei and asked, "Did you see it clearly?" "I saw it clearly." Chapter 42:19. Although he had seen it clearly, it would be difficult for him to do what he had done. Clean up the spoils of war. Du Fan said as he glanced at the corpses. Okay. Yi Feifei replied as he kept his long sword and quickly cleaned up the area. In fact, he was just collecting all the valuable items from the mercenaries. "Thank you for saving us." The two tied-up middle-aged men were the first to regain their senses and hurriedly thanked him. Du Fan glanced at them and waved his hand. A wind blade slashed across and cut the ropes that bound them. He said, "You can leave on your own." When the two of them regained their freedom, they hurriedly untied the ropes on the few juniors. Hearing Du Fan's words, the two middle-aged men looked worried. "Sir, can you let us follow you for the night? We have been drugged and have lost all our spiritual energy. The juniors are weak and our fellow tribesmen are all dead. If you leave now, I'm afraid that we won't be able to survive the night." Du Fan stood there and gently tapped the fan in his hand. He didn't say anything and only watched as Yi Feifei searched the mercenaries' belongings. Seeing that he didn't say anything, those people didn't dare to say anything and just stood there watching. Only after Yi Feifei had collected all the valuable items from the mercenaries did he come to Du Fan's side and said, "Big brother Du, I just took a look. These mercenaries have quite a lot of valuable items on them." That. One of the young girls looked at Yi Feifei and then looked at Du Fan. She whispered, "Our things were stolen by the mercenaries. Can you return them to us?" Little 16. The middle-aged man shouted and warned her with his eyes. Their belongings were indeed stolen by the mercenaries, but they didn't dare to ask the two of them to return their belongings. After all, if the two of them didn't appear, they might not even be alive right now. I was just thinking that if we didn't have those things, we might not be able to walk out of this forest alive." The young girl whispered but didn't dare to say anything else. She just lowered her head. Hearing this, Yi Feifei glanced at Du Fan and asked, "Brother Du, what do you think?" "I'll leave it to you," Du Fan said. Hearing this, Yi Feifei smiled and said, "Then I'll return their things to them. As for the others, we'll keep them." After all, they weren't the kind of people who specialized in snatching things. Returning their things to them wasn't a big loss for them. Seeing this, Du Fan smiled and nodded. Thus, Yi Feifei took out the cosmos bags and spatial rings that he had collected and placed them on the ground. He said, "Come over and identify which one is yours." Hearing this, the two middle-aged men and the youths and young girls were stunned. They didn't expect that they would be willing to return the items to them. For a moment, they hesitated. "Hurry up!" Yi Feifei shouted. Seeing that she didn't seem to be lying, they stepped forward and bowed to the two of them. They said, "Thank you very much." As they spoke, they pointed out their things and told them what was inside. Yi Feifei opened it and looked. After confirming that it was as they said, he returned the items to them. Chapter 42-20. Under Du Fan's lead, the group of people left the area filled with the smell of blood, and sat down to rest under a tree. Because the surroundings were dark and unsafe, they did not pick up branches to start a fire, and instead sat down to warm themselves. "Big brother Du, this defensive suit is really useful. Look at the few cuts on my clothes, but there is no blood." Yi Feifei, who was sitting beside Du Fan, said as she pulled on her clothes. There were only a few cuts, but there was no physical injury. A smile appeared on Du Fan's face as he said, "The defensive suit naturally has defensive capabilities. However, it's also because those mercenaries aren't that strong. If you encounter a true powerhouse, the defensive suit you're wearing won't be able to withstand their attacks. If we met a truly strong opponent, don't we have Big Brother Du? I'm not afraid," she said with a smile, and took out a cloak from her space, draped it over her body, and leaned against the tree to sleep. Du Fan looked at her, and secretly shook his head with a smile. He did not sleep, and only closed his eyes to rest. Listening to the roars of beasts in the night, perhaps because of the smell of blood from the mercenaries' corpses, the beasts in the night followed the scent of blood, as if they were not far from them. Because of the roars in the night, the faces of the young men and women on the other side were pale. They huddled together, looking around worriedly, and did not dare to sleep. The next morning, Yi Feifei was woken up by Du Fan. She opened her eyes and saw Du Fan standing up, and quickly stood up as well. She kept her cloak and asked, "Big brother Du, what's wrong?" "Someone is coming." Du Fan said, looking in a direction, and slightly tilting his head to listen. After a while, he said, there are quite a few people, probably some of the people from the families who are training. Because the mercenaries they met yesterday said that this area was the Green Wolf mercenaries' area of activity, other mercenaries didn't dare to come close. Therefore, the only explanation was that this person was a member of the clan who came to train. The two middle-aged men stood to the side with a few disciples from their families. They were also looking in the direction Du Fan was looking at. Not long after, they saw a group of people walking towards them. After seeing these people clearly, they were slightly relieved. This was because these people were indeed from a family that had come to gain experience. Moreover, they were people that they knew. You too, they are from a family that we know. Please allow us to go over and say a few words. The two middle-aged men said as their gazes fell on Du Fan. Since you know them, then follow them. Du Fan said. He didn't pay much attention to them and continued to lead Yi Feifei into the depths of the forest. Seeing that they had left, the two middle-aged men heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly walked towards that family. Brother Wei, it's great to meet you here, said the two middle-aged men as they hurried forward. It's you? The middle-aged man leading the group looked at them, and then looked in surprise at Du Fan and Yi Feifei who had left. He asked the two in front of him, why are you here? Aren't the two who left your men? Chapter 42-21. Hearing this, the eyes of the elder in the group flashed. He was a little surprised. The Green Wolf mercenary group? That's a notorious mercenary group. Their battle prowess is also very shocking. Usually, people who fall into their hands can't escape at all. The meaning behind his words was to ask, how did those two people escape with you? The two middle-aged men looked at each other and said, we didn't escape at all. That person saved us, not to escape, but to destroy the Green Wolf mercenary group and save us. Although it was indeed a little unbelievable, it had happened before their eyes. They had seen with their own eyes that the mercenary group had been killed by those two people. Not a single one was left alive. Brother Wei, now that there are only a few of us left, we were wondering if we could join your group. Go out with you? The middle-aged man asked. Ha ha ha, of course, there's no problem. You can follow our group. However, we probably won't go out yet. We'll only leave this place after a few days. That's not a problem. The two middle-aged men said. Following their group, they finally relaxed. On the other side, Du Fan and Yi Feifei rushed into the forest. After reaching a place, Du Fan stopped and looked at Yi Feifei's feet. What's wrong, big brother Du? Yi Feifei asked, puzzled. She followed his gaze and looked at her feet. Let me add something for you. Increase the strength of your training. Du Fan said and took out several iron plates from his space. He gestured to her and said, sit down, I'll tie them up for you. Iron plates? You want to tie these to my feet? Yi Feifei asked as she found a place to sit down. This is the iron plate that I used in the past. Master also used this to train us in the past. Du Fan helped to tie the iron plates close to her feet, and then tied a layer of cloth around them. Don't take these off. Even if you're sleeping, you have to wear them. Du Fan said with a smile. Stand up and raise your feet to take a look. Oh. Yi Feifei responded. When she stood up, she felt a weight on her feet and her body couldn't help but stabilize. She quickly steadied herself and realized that her feet were really heavy. It's very heavy, big brother Du. Yi Feifei lifted his leg and asked, it must be 7 or 8 pounds each, right? 10 caddies per leg. Both feet weigh 20 jin, so I've added 20 jin of weight to your feet. Du Fan's voice grew louder as he spoke, train well. That's how we've been through it. Hearing his words, Yi Feifei replied, yes, I will. She tried to lift her leg again. As expected, it was still very heavy. She was even certain that she would not be able to keep up with Du Fan if she were to walk with something tied to her leg. Every time she lifted her leg, it would be a torture. On this side, the training continued. On the other side, Fengjiu and the other two were also preparing to continue to the forest. Behind them, a group of ferocious beasts followed. Those ferocious beasts did not dare to come forward, but they did not want to leave. They seemed to be waiting for an opportunity. When Wang Yu fell behind, they would rush forward and drag him away. Because there was a group of ferocious beasts behind them, Wang Yu, who obviously could not keep up with Fengjiu and the other two, had to try his best to increase his speed and follow them closely. But in this way, he would be particularly tired, especially when his physical strength was consumed. Chapter 42-22. Listening to Wang Yu's words, Fengjiu smiled and glanced back, saying, "Okay, let's take a rest." She took out the map and looked at it, saying, "There is a water source in front of us. Let's go there to rest." "Okay." Wang Yu answered, gritting his teeth and following them. When they came to the water source in front, they saw a mountain stream flowing from top to bottom. The water was not big, but it was very clear. So, Fengjiu went forward to wash his face, and sat on the stone on the side with Leng Shuang to rest. After washing his face, Wang Yu took out a gourd-shaped magic instrument and filled it with water. He looked at Fengjiu and Leng Shuang, saying, "Well, Dr. Gui, can I soak my feet here?" "Okay." Fengjiu nodded and said with a smile, "There is no one around, and the water source is running water. The stream in the forest is very cold. What's wrong with soaking your feet and relaxing?" She said to Leng Shuang, "We have been walking for so long. Let's soak for a while, shall we?" "Master, soak. I don't need it," Leng Shuang said, staring at the ferocious beasts lying in the grass not far away, in case they suddenly pounced on them. "Okay." Fengjiu answered, took off his boots and socks, and soaked his feet in the stream. The cold stream soaked his feet, and he felt comfortable all over. Wang Yu found a place to sit down under Fengjiu. He carefully took off his boots and socks, only to see that the socks had been stained with blood. His feet were bloody and abraded, which looked a little shocking at this time. Fengjiu glanced at him, frowned, and said, "How did your feet get hurt like this? Soak your feet and wash them. Apply medicine on them before you go." It seemed that he was really a young master. Even if he had experience before, he still couldn't stand walking in the forest for a long time. Wang Yu soaked for a while to ease the pain in her feet. Then she wiped the water and took out the medicine to apply. However, even if it was simply bandaged, it would still hurt when touched. He wiped his sweat and said, "Sit down for a while. I'm going to hunt a vicious beast for dinner." As he spoke, he was about to get up, but Fengjiu stopped him. "Sit down." Fengjiu said, "We're not eating barbecue today. Besides, there's still meat in the space. You should rest first. I'll teach you a set of footwork later. You can use it together with your spiritual power so that it won't be so strenuous." As she spoke, her palm moved and a spirit fruit flew out from her hand. "For you to eat." Taking the spiritual fruit, Wang Yu was a little surprised and just said to her, "Thank you." Fengjiu took out 2 more spiritual fruits and handed one to Leng Shuang. After taking a rest, Fengjiu stood up and said, "Watch carefully." She practiced the footwork twice in front of him and then asked, "Did you see it clearly?" Looking at the unpredictable footwork, Wang Yu was a little excited and quickly nodded. "Yes, I saw it clearly. I'll show you." Then he stood up and walked according to her footwork. His speed gradually increased from slow to fast. "Good. You're talented." Fengjiu chuckled and said, "You can practice by yourself. You won't have blisters on your feet if you use this footwork." Okay. Wang Yu responded and practiced over and over again in the open space. He practiced until it was dark and then he stopped because he heard voices coming toward them. Chapter 42-23. Fengjiu smiled and said, "Don't worry, they won't come close. You forgot that there are more than a dozen ferocious beasts in the grass and trees." Those ferocious beasts had been following them all the way. They were unwilling to leave, but they didn't dare to come forward. However, if other people came close, those ferocious beasts would rush over instead of just following them. Sure enough, as soon as her voice fell, there was a scream not far away. "No! There are ferocious beasts! Go back! Ow!" As soon as the exclamation fell, the roars of the beasts could be heard, and rustling sounds could be heard from the bushes and trees. As for the three people who were sitting by the water source, because of the cover of the grass that was half a person's height, no one noticed them. Their attention was all on the beasts. Wang Yu saw that half of those ferocious beasts chased out, and the other half were still lying in the grass, staring at them. She said, "It seems that they are young people. I don't know if they can avoid them. You can go and have a look." Fengjiu said, wiped the water off his feet, put on his boots, and said, "Try your footwork by the way." Hearing this, Wang Yu nodded without thinking, "Well, I'll go and have a look." Then she went in the direction of the sound. As soon as she rushed out, those ferocious beasts no longer squatted, but jumped up and chased after her with a roar. Looking at this scene, Leng Shuang's eyes flashed with a strange color, and he said, "Master, he is leading those ferocious beasts to them. More than a dozen powerful ferocious beasts. Even a powerful family would have a hard time fighting against them." Fengjiu smiled, "It doesn't matter. How can people who come out to experience and not encounter ferocious beasts? It's just a dozen ferocious beasts. It should be enough for a family to deal with them." As soon as her voice fell, she jumped up a tree and said, "Let's go. Let's go and have a look." Two figures rose up and went to the place where the sound was chaotic. After a few leaps, they came to a tree and watched the scene of the chaotic battle. More than a dozen ferocious beasts were fighting with the family. Among them, 6 or 7 ferocious beasts were targeting Wang Yu, and their attacks were only directed at Wang Yu. It seemed that they had an incomprehensible obsession with this prey that had followed them all the way. Because she fought 6 or 7 ferocious beasts alone, Wang Yu was soon wounded. Blood soaked her robe, and the more she fought, the braver she became. The strength of that clan was beyond Fengjiu's expectations. Several ferocious beasts were killed. Aside from some who were injured, no one died because of the ferocious beasts. Perhaps it was because a few ferocious beasts had died and the other ferocious beasts were unable to gain the upper hand. After a short battle, the remaining 7 or 8 ferocious beasts quickly fled. At this time, Wang Yu was so tired that he was panting. He supported his shaking body with the sword in his hand until he steadied himself and leaned against the tree to rest. Then he looked up at the family member. "Who are you? Why are you here?" A middle-aged man asked in a calm voice and stared at him unkindly. "You led those ferocious beasts here." Wang Yu took a moment to calm down and said, "I was resting at the water source in front. After hearing the noise, I came to help. I didn't lead the ferocious beasts here. They were lurking around." Chapter 42-24. Fengjiu, who was in the tree, could not help but smile when he heard this. He thought to himself, Wang Yu is not an inflexible person. He knows what to say on what occasion. Perhaps the middle-aged man felt that what he said made sense, but his expression relaxed a little. Then, he sized him up from head to toe and said, "You're a rogue cultivator? Didn't you follow the team? Why are you alone?" Wang Yu was about to speak when he heard Fengjiu's voice in his mind. "Find a way to follow them. These people are very strong. If you follow their team, you will be fine in this forest. Leng Shuang and I will go first to explore inside. Listening to the words in his mind, Wang Yu pursed his lips slightly. He knew that he was not as strong as them and had been holding them back. So, he cupped his hands and bowed to the middle-aged man, saying, I'm Wang Yu, the young master of the Wang family in Cyan Demon City. I was separated from my team because of the ferocious beast. Can I go with you? Hearing this, the middle-aged man raised his eyebrows and looked him up and down suspiciously. You are Wang Yu, the young master of the Wang family, one of the 8 families in Cyan Demon City? That playboy? Hearing the words, playboy, Wang Yu was a little embarrassed and said, yes, that's me. The middle-aged man and an old man next to him looked at each other and then smiled, saying, Cyan Demon City is the closest city to Cyan Demon Forest. I also know some news about the 8 families there. I have always heard that Wang Yu is a playboy. However, judging from your fighting capacity, you don't seem to be a playboy. It seems that the rumor is wrong. Fengjiu, who was in the tree, watched them talk for a while. Perhaps he thought that Wang Yu was a playboy and had shown extraordinary fighting capacity before, so he wanted to make friends with him. Seeing this, Fengjiu transmitted a voice message, Leng Shuang and I will go first. The purpose of this trip is the ancient 9-tailed fox spirit. I don't know when we can find it. If we are destined to meet again, maybe we will meet again. Take care of yourself. After that, he took Leng Shuang to the depths of the forest. The two of them moved like the wind, and only the leaves rustled as if they were being brushed by the wind. When Wang Yu looked up, the 2 figures had disappeared. She sighed in her heart and collected her thoughts. She thought to herself, I should have known that the purpose of their trip is the 9-tailed fox spirit. They will not always take me to the depths. Now that there is a suitable opportunity, it is normal for them to leave me behind. If I want to blame someone, I can only blame myself for not being strong enough and dragging them down. Wang Yu, what are you looking at? The middle-aged man looked in the direction he was looking but saw nothing. No, I'm just thinking that there are so many ferocious beasts here that I can't relax for even a moment. Wang Yu shook her head and said. Hearing this, the middle-aged man laughed. Indeed, there are quite a lot of ferocious beasts here. However, this is only the periphery. If we go deeper, it won't be a matter of how many ferocious beasts there are. It will be a matter of how strong the ferocious beasts are. Come, come, come. Since you're with us, let me introduce you to everyone. The middle-aged man introduced his people to Wang Yu. Chapter 42-25. Fengjiu smiled and said, Don't worry. Nothing will happen. You have seen the fighting capacity of that family. They are very strong. Didn't you notice that there is another one? There is a young woman in that family. Both of them are aristocratic families. They have seen Wang Yu's fighting capacity. The middle-aged man is not stupid. He will not miss such an opportunity to make friends with her. With that, she pursed her lips and smiled, saying, Maybe Wang Yu can bring a fiancé back after returning from here. This kind of marriage between aristocratic families has always been the most common. Hearing that, Leng Shuang nodded, pretending to understand. She just thought that it might not be safe for Wang Yu to be with those people. She didn't expect that her master would think about it. Now that he heard her say this, he felt relieved and threw this matter to the back of his mind. Master, Du Fan and Feifei's journey is not fast. Maybe they haven't entered the inner area yet. Well, Feifei's strength is much worse than yours. It is impossible for her to reach the same level as you. However, she will have her own strengths. I believe that after Du Fan's training, she can be independent in the future. Fengjiu said, and the red figure shuttled through the forest. Around them, sometimes there were ferocious beasts roaring and pouncing on them when they found them. However, they were stepped on by force and missed. After chasing for a while, they stopped. Here, there were some places where ferocious beasts with low ranks did not dare to approach. Therefore, when they found that their prey had left their range of activity, they gave up the idea of killing them. Without Wang Yu following them, they sped up. Their goal was the depths of the Cyan Demon Forest. Therefore, they didn't stop all the way, but went deeper. In the evening of the third day, Fengjiu, who was in front of them, saw a stream and a flat land in front of them. She stopped and took out the map to check it. Leng Shuang, who was behind her, also stopped. She stood aside and paid attention to the surrounding movements. She only found that this place was very quiet. There were no roars of ferocious beasts and even fewer ferocious beasts. Moreover, the road they had walked through was a forest. However, in front of them, there was only a stream a few meters wide. Looking around, there were no trees. Although they didn't see any ferocious beasts, with their years of experience, this place was no less dangerous than the roads they had walked through before. "Master, have we reached the inner area?" Leng Shuang asked. "Yes, this stream separates the inner and outer regions. After this stream, you'll reach the inner region." Feng Jiu glanced at the markings on the map in her hand, then looked at the stream ahead and said, "There is a kind of man-eating four-legged beast in this stream. It crawls quickly, has strong attack power, and strong defense power. This area is the range of activity of the man-eating four-legged beast, so other beasts rarely come here." "Master, is it that one?" Leng Shuang pointed to the huge ferocious beast lying in the mud in front of them. Although this was a flat land, there were fewer weeds. Instead, there was more sand. The mud-colored four-legged beast was lying in the sand as a cover. If one didn't look carefully, it would be difficult to notice the four-legged beast. Chapter 42-26. Just as the two of them were talking, the surrounding soil seemed to loosen, and four-legged beasts crawled out of the soil. They stared at Fengjiu and Leng Shuang, who were not far away. Suddenly, they opened their mouths and howled. The surrounding four-legged beasts immediately leaped out and pounced on the two of them. The two of them tapped their toes and soared into the air. They watched as the four-legged beasts below all rushed out. There were about 200 to 300 of them. At this time, they were waving their tails and crawling on the ground. Some crawled to the stream, while others howled and looked up at the two people in the air. Hiss! Suddenly, a sharp cry came from the sky. The two of them looked in the direction of the sound and saw a flock of giant bald eagles swooping down on them. "Go!" Fengjiu shouted and soared into the air. However, the giant bald eagles were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they blocked their path and trapped them in the stream. Hiss! The giant bald eagles howled and flashed their sharp claws at the two of them. Their long red beaks were as sharp as knives pecked at them. With a flap of their wings, wind blades brushed past their faces. The attacks came wave after wave, not giving them any time to catch their breath. "Scram!" Fengjiu shouted coldly. With a flick of his sleeve and a wave of his hand, a flame came out of his hand and burned the surrounding area. Whoosh! Hiss! The flames came out with an ancient pressure. The few bald eagles that were quick to escape flapped their wings and fled in panic. Those that were slow to escape had their feathers set on fire by the flames. For a moment, sharp screeches sounded in the surroundings. As the flames burned, a foul smell spread in the air. Perhaps sensing the ancient aura, the originally restless four-legged beasts howled and attempted to bury their bodies under the soil. Leng Shuang followed beside Fengjiu and watched as the giant bald eagles screamed and dove into the stream below. However, the four-legged beasts in the water opened their mouths and swallowed them. Fengjiu glanced down and saw that the bald eagles were either dead or running away, so he didn't pay any more attention to them. Instead, he said to Leng Shuang, "Let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, he walked towards the opposite stream. Leng Shuang looked back at the four-legged beasts and followed behind Fengjiu. Her master's ancient pressure had been restrained the entire way. If it was released, no ferocious beasts would dare to take a step closer to her. Seeing her master's red clothes fluttering in front of her, her eyes gradually softened. From the moment she followed her master, she had seen her master become stronger step by step. She had seen her master go through countless trials and become the master of heaven and earth. Although her master's strength had not recovered to its peak, with her master's talent, she believed that it would not be long before she regained her former strength. She might even be more powerful than before. 3 months later, in the morning, Fengjiu stood at the peak of a mountain and looked at the surrounding trees and layers of mountains. Her mood was somewhat anxious and heavy. Chapter 42-27. In fact, she didn't even see or feel the aura or traces of the ancient nine-tailed spirit fox. She was worried that there would be no news if she continued to search here. She was worried about her children. She missed them. She had been away from home for so long. How old were they now? Would they still recognize her when she returned? If she could not help them find suitable contracted beasts, if she could not help them change their fates, if something happened to them before then, once the worry in her heart surged, it could not be stopped. This kind of worry increased day by day, and it also made her more anxious day by day. Her entire being was occupied by this kind of worry, and the smile on her face became fewer and fewer. Her entire body emitted a cold aura that made people unable to approach her. Leng Shuang stood behind her and looked at her. She was shrouded in a cold aura as she looked into the distance without saying a word. She knew that her master was thinking about the 2 young masters and the Yama Lord. She also knew that her master was worried about not being able to help the 2 young masters find ancient mythical beasts as contracted beasts. However, even though she knew, she could not help her. Ancient mythical beasts were not ordinary beasts. They could only be found by chance. Even if they were anxious, there was no way to make the ancient mythical beasts appear. "Master, you should rest today. I'll go take a walk in the forest," Leng Shuang said. "No need, in a while." Before she could finish her sentence, her eyes were attracted by a white figure that flitted past a mountain peak in the distance. "What's that?" she muttered, and almost without thinking, she raised her chi and flew towards the mountain peak. Her speed was as fast as the speed of light, and Leng Shuang could not react in time. "Master!" Leng Shuang only saw a white figure flitting past the mountainside in the distance. She did not see what the white figure was. Seeing her master raise her chi and fly in that direction, she quickly chased after her. Fengjiu's gaze was fixed on the white figure, and her divine sense was also locked onto the white figure. However, the white figure was moving extremely fast, and even with her speed, she could not catch up to it. 1 human and 1 beast were chasing each other from a distance of several hundred meters. When Fengjiu saw the white figure in front of her suddenly stop and turn around to look at her, her eyes lit up with ecstasy. Ancient nine-tailed fox spirit. Its speed was so fast that she could only see a flash of white. However, when it stopped, those 9 snow-white tails swayed behind it. Its body was so small, and its pair of dark blue eyes matched with its snow-white fur. It was so beautiful that she could recognize it at a glance. This was the 9-tailed spirit fox that old man Wang had drawn. The ancient 9-tailed spirit fox turned around to look at Fengjiu, who was following closely behind it. It suddenly raised its head and let out a squeak. The squeak was soft, but just as the squeak fell, there was a commotion in the forest, as if all the beasts were rushing towards them. After the squeak, the ancient 9-tailed spirit fox leaped and continued to fly towards the mountain peak, its white figure weaving through the trees. Fengjiu chased after it closely. However, there were suddenly countless beasts in the mountains that had not appeared before. They blocked her path and helped the ancient nine-tailed spirit fox escape. Chapter 42-28. Feng Jiu snorted coldly and released all the pressure from her body. Those originally restless beasts, after feeling the ancient pressure, howled and lay down one by one. She was blocked by the beasts for a moment, and when she looked again, there was no trace of the nine-tailed fox. Leng Shuang caught up with her and saw her looking around. He asked, "Master, what was that?" It was the nine-tailed fox. The ancient nine-tailed fox, it finally appeared. Fengjiu's eyes could not hide his excitement and annoyance. He said, "It was just in front of me, but I was blocked by the beasts and let it escape. If I was faster, perhaps it would not have escaped." Hearing this, Leng Shuang said, "Since it appeared, it must be in this area. Master, let's continue looking. We will definitely find it. And, let's split up and search in this direction. You inform Du Fan and the others to find out where they are and ask them to come here." Fengjiu said and rushed forward. "Okay." Leng Shuang replied and took out his communication jade tablet to inform Du Fan and the others. At this time, Du Fan and Yi Feifei were somewhere in the depths of the forest. They looked at the movements in the forest in surprise and found that the turbulence only lasted for a while and then calmed down. Yi Feifei could not help but ask, "Big brother Du, what happened just now?" It seemed that all the beasts were running in the same direction, but now they stopped. Du Fan looked into the depths of the forest and said, "I think something attracted them." As he spoke, he seemed to have sensed something. He took out a glowing communication jade tablet from the space. After he heard the news from the jade tablet, he smiled. "Master and Leng Shuang found traces of the nine-tailed fox and asked us to hurry over and help find it. They had been here for a few months and finally there was news of the ancient nine-tailed fox." "Great! Let's go." Yi Feifei's eyes were full of surprise, and the joy on her face could not be concealed. "Let me check the map and see how far we are from them," Du Fan said and took out the map to check. At this time, Yi Feifei looked in one direction and calmed down to listen. She heard the roar of beasts and screams, and could not help but say, "Big brother Du, there seems to be someone there." "I heard the sound." Du Fan looked in the direction she pointed and released his divine awareness. After a while, he took it back and said in surprise, "It's Wang Yu and her family's people? How did they come to the inner area?" He knew that Wang Yu was abandoned by Leng Shuang. At that time, he heard from Leng Shuang that she left Wang Yu with a family in the periphery. He thought that after a few months, that family should have left the Cyan Demon Forest. Even if they hadn't left, they shouldn't have appeared in the inner area. Unexpectedly, with a sweep of his divine awareness, he unexpectedly caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. It was Wang Yu. Wang Yu? Yi Feifei could not help but be surprised. Are they in trouble? Let's go. Let's go and have a look. Du Fan said, put away the map and rushed in that direction. Chapter 42-29. When we fight our way out, Wang Yu, you take them and leave quickly. You must escape. The middle-aged man shouted in a deep voice. His body was scarred, and his clothes were stained with blood. His arm was scratched by a ferocious beast, and the wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. Even the middle-aged man was seriously injured, not to mention the others. There were only 30 people left in their group, and all of them were injured. Their clothes were stained with blood, and they were in a sorry state. Even so, none of them stepped back. On the contrary, those older and stronger ones all formed a protective circle, protecting the younger members of the family in the middle, and Wang Yu was also in their protection. These ferocious beasts suddenly went crazy, and their combat effectiveness is stronger than before. It's not just one or two of them, but a group. If we fight for a long time, we will all die here. Now, we can only find a way to fight our way out for the younger generation of the family. The old man said in a deep voice, and stepped forward to attack the ferocious beasts. As soon as the battle started, the ferocious beasts on the other side also growled. More than a dozen ferocious beasts jumped forward to attack, and more than a dozen stayed around and did not move, but looked at them covetously. It seemed that if anyone dared to escape from their hunting circle, they would pounce on him and tear him to pieces. Ah! A woman fell out of the defensive circle because of pushing and dodging. A ferocious beast immediately roared and rushed forward, and its sharp claws scratched at her neck. "Be careful!" Wang Yu saw it and exclaimed. He had no time to help her up or even attack, so he could only rush forward to resist the ferocious beast's attack. Hiss! Ah! The sharp claws scratched down and left several bloody marks on Wang Yu's back. The strength of the claw was not light. It not only tore his defensive clothes, but also tore his clothes and flesh. Several deep bloody marks gushed out, and blood quickly dyed his back red. He screamed, and cold sweat oozed from his forehead. He wanted to straighten up, but he could not stand at all. "Wang Yu! Wang Yu! Hurry up! Save them!" Several cries of alarm rang out. They wanted to go forward and rescue the two people who were lying on the ground, but no one had the time to even get close to them. They were tightly entangled by the fierce beasts, and wave after wave of attacks did not give them a chance to rescue the two people. What was more, there were ferocious beasts staring at them. No one could get close to Wang Yu and Qin Haodong. Because when they attacked and dodged, they were already out of the defensive circle. At this time, they were surrounded by those ferocious beasts and could not be saved. "Wang Yu, how are you? Get up!" The woman who was protected by Wang Yu on the ground couldn't help but have red eyes. She wanted to help him up, but she was pressed down by him and couldn't move at all. The pain in his back caused his body to tremble as if his body no longer belonged to him. Wang Yu clenched his teeth and endured the pain to stand up. However, a ferocious beast roared and opened its mouth to bite the two of them. Seeing this, he instinctively opened his arms to protect the woman beneath him. He wanted to use his body to protect her. Seeing this, the woman couldn't help but cry, "Wang Yu, get up, get up!" Roar! Phew! Chapter 42:30. Ow! The ferocious beast howled and its huge body fell to the ground. In the next moment, a figure leaped into the air and sat on the dead ferocious beast. After pulling out the golden arrow, he revealed a smile. "Young Master Yu, we meet again," Yi Feifei said with a smile, holding a small golden bow in her hand. Looking at the stunned Wang Yu, she smiled and squinted her eyes. Seeing this, the surrounding ferocious beasts howled and rushed forward. Wang Yu immediately exclaimed, "Watch out behind you." Just as her voice came out, Yi Feifei pulled out the golden arrow stuck in the beast's head and put on the bow in her hand. She turned her body back and shot out with a swish. At the same time, she jumped down from the dead ferocious beast's body and squatted down. Her hand brushed her waist, and 3 arrows were put on the small bow in her hand. Swish! 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 3 sharp airflows were shot out, piercing through the air and shooting toward the 3 ferocious beasts. 1 arrow hit its fatal spot, and the other arrow shot out, and the ferocious beasts fell down. After shooting a few arrows, she put the small bow on her waist, pulled out the dagger, and jumped forward. She raised the dagger in her hand and attacked the ferocious beasts. Looking at this scene, Wang Yu could not help but be stunned and looked at Yi Feifei incredulously. Was this still the Yi Feifei from a few months ago? At that time, her strength was not even as good as his. How could her combat effectiveness be so amazing in just 3 months? Not only was Wang Yu dumbfounded, but even the people of that family had an incredible look on their faces. They were shocked to see the woman with a nimble body movement, full of a murderous aura, and couldn't recover from their shock. The other party was dressed in black and looked neat and tidy. She had a small golden bow on her waist, which looked like an extraordinary spirit weapon. Not to mention her accurate archery, her attack power was also so strong, which was really surprising. Following Yi Feifei's attack and Du Fan's appearance, the remaining dozen or so ferocious beasts roared as they fearfully glanced at the two of them. However, they did not dare to continue the fight and quickly left. God knew how many ferocious beasts in the inner area had been destroyed by these two people during this time. Humans didn't know, but the beasts did. Now that they saw these two people, they only wanted to avoid them as far as possible. After killing the ferocious beast closest to her, Yi Feifei saw that those ferocious beasts had escaped, so he did not chase them. Instead, he turned back and stood beside Du Fan, looking curiously at Wang Yu, who was lying on the ground and protecting the woman. The clansman quickly helped the two up. After standing firm, Wang Yu cupped her hands to the two of them with a pale face. "Young Master Du, Miss Yi, thank you for your help." Yi Feifei smiled and said, "It's okay, I'll just take it as practice. It's just that when I heard Big Brother Du said it was you, I was really surprised." Du Fan looked at him and said, "Wang Yu, even if you didn't leave the Cyan Demon Forest, you shouldn't have come to the inner circle. This place is not suitable for you to gain experience." Wang Yu smiled bitterly. In a few months, his strength had improved, but compared with Yi Feifei in Du Fan, there was no comparison at all. He was a little complacent, thinking that he had made rapid progress, but he did not expect that Yi Feifei, who was weaker than him a few months ago, was now stronger than him. Chapter 42-31. Seeing that Wang Yu was seriously injured, Yi Feifei gently pulled Du Fan's sleeve and said to Wang Yu, "The injury on your back is serious. Treat it first. Otherwise, it will be inflamed. In this forest, because of the climate and the bad conditions, some injuries would be very troublesome if they were not treated in time. Wang Yu, come here and sit down. I'll treat your wound first." The woman who supported Wang Yu said as she helped him to sit down. At this time, the middle-aged man and the old man looked at each other, and then they cupped their hands to Du Fan and Yi Feifei, saying, "Thank you for your help. I'm Lin Dong, the head of the Lin family, and this is the elder of the Lin family. How should I address you?" Du Fan nodded slightly and said, "My surname is Du." He didn't say anything else after that. "My name is Yi Feifei," she said with a smile. "Are you old friends with Wang Yu?" The middle-aged man, Lin Dong, asked and looked at Wang Yu. You can say that we know each other," Du Fan said. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed a bottle of medicine forward. "Use this. Yes, your injuries will heal faster." "Thank you." Wang Yu took the bottle and knew that it was the medicine of the ghost doctor, which was very precious. He couldn't help but feel grateful. He handed the medicine to the woman and looked at Yi Feifei enviously, saying, "Miss Ye's strength has improved rapidly. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it." Hearing this, Yi Feifei was happy and said with a smile on his face, "I have improved a little because Big Brother Du has been training me for the past few months. You don't know how I survived these few months. It is not easy to have the strength I have now." Then she smiled embarrassedly and looked at Du Fan beside her. Seeing that he was looking at her, she said with a smile, I know. I can't be complacent. I have to guard against arrogance and impatience." But as soon as she finished speaking, she took out a small bow and arrow from her waist as if presenting a treasure and said, "Wang Yu, look, this is the treasure I got here. My archery is now very accurate." Seeing this, Du Fan shook his head helplessly, but a smile appeared on his face. He looked at Wang Yu and asked, "Are you going to stay here or leave?" Hearing this, the middle-aged man glanced at Wang Yu and said to Du Fan, "Young Master Du, it's like this. Now that we have suffered heavy casualties, we can no longer practice here. I plan to take them away. Du Fan nodded. It's good to leave. At least we can save our lives if we turn back and leave the Cyan Devil Forest. It's hard to say if we continue to go deeper. He looked at the sky and said, since you guys are out of danger, and we still have things to do, we won't stay here for long. Take care. Hearing this, Wang Yu, who had been silent, saw that they were about to leave. She immediately stood up regardless of the wound on her back and said, "Can I follow you?" Hearing this, Du Fan was slightly surprised and looked at him. "Why do you want to follow us? You are injured like this. You should leave here and go back to recuperate. Although I'm stronger than when I first came in, I'm not that much stronger, so I..." As he spoke, he looked at Du Fan with a pleading gaze, "Please let me follow you. I won't make trouble for you. I just think that when you train Miss Yi, I can also train with you." Chapter 42-32. Du Fan's eyes flashed slightly. He glanced at him and said, "Your strength can't keep up with us. If you encounter danger, you can't protect yourself. The danger in the depths of the Cyan Devil Forest is far more dangerous than what you have encountered now. Moreover, you should know the purpose of our trip. Wang Yu, your injury." The woman supported him, but he pushed her away. He stepped forward and knelt down. His eyes were firm. "I know, but I want to be stronger. Please take me with you. I will try my best to keep up with you and won't drag you down." Yi Feifei felt sorry for him, but he didn't say anything. He just looked at Du Fan and wondered what he would do. "It's Master's decision to let you stay. If you want to follow us, wait for me to ask Master," Du Fan said. He glanced at him and said, "Get up first and treat your wound. Also, the smell of blood here is too strong. You have to leave as soon as possible, lest other fierce beasts are attracted." Lin Dong and the old man naturally knew this. They wanted to leave after Wang Yu was bandaged, but they did not expect that Wang Yu suddenly knelt down and begged to follow them. At this moment, the two of them were a little surprised. "Treat your wounds. We're going to move back," Lin Dong said. He pulled Wang Yu aside and asked in a low voice, "Wang Yu, have you really decided to go with them? Who the hell are they? Can you follow them like this?" Du Fan took Yi Feifei to a place not far away. He took out his communication jade plate and asked Fengzhou's decision. After all, if they wanted to take Wang Yu with them, it would not be a matter of 1 or 2 months. They might have to stay here for half a year or even a year. If they wanted to take someone who didn't belong to them with them for so long, they naturally had to ask Fengzhou's decision. About 7 or 8 minutes later, Du Fan and Yi Feifei came back. Looking at Wang Yu, who was looking at them nervously and waiting for them to announce their decision, Du Fan smiled and said, "Come with us." Master agreed. Hearing this, Wang Yu finally felt relieved. He showed a relieved smile and looked at Lin Dong. "Uncle Lin, I will go with them. Be careful on your way back." Lin Dong sighed inwardly. He looked at him and asked, "Wang Yu, if you go with them, how long will you stay here?" "Your marriage with Xilin." Lin Jilin looked at Wang Yu, her beautiful eyes filled with reluctance. After getting along with each other for a few months, they fell in love with each other and decided that Wang Yu would come to propose marriage after they got out of the Cyan Demon Forest. But now, "Wang Yu, do you really want to go with them?" she asked softly, her eyes full of reluctance. Wang Yu said apologetically to Du Fan and Yi Feifei, "Please wait for me. I need to say a few words to them." The two nodded and went to wait for him not far away. "Uncle Lin, I don't know how long I will stay here, but now I have this opportunity to follow them. Even if the road ahead is full of danger, I must go." His voice paused as he looked at the woman beside him and said, as for my marriage with Ji Lin, I want to wait until I return before going to the Lin family to propose. However, if Ji Lin meets someone more suitable than me, I will give her my blessings. Chapter 42-33. Not far away, Du Fan and Yi Feifei glanced at Wang Yu and the woman. Du Fan didn't care, but Yi Feifei said with a mocking face, "Brother Du, look how powerful Wang Yu is. It's only been a few months, but he's able to talk about a marriage by himself. Miss Lin is also very beautiful. He's really lucky." Du Fan glanced at him and said, "Is he powerful? Even if he's powerful, he won't be scratched on the back by a ferocious beast. That wound won't be so easy to heal. Now he has to follow us. He'll suffer. I thought that since Master let him follow this family, he wouldn't be allowed to follow us to join Master. I didn't expect that Master would agree in the end." Yi Feifei said with a smile, "I know that he sees my strength getting stronger and wants to follow you to improve his strength." Du Fan snorted and said, "I teach you and train you without reservation because you're one of us. I can teach you some martial arts and cultivation methods that are not taught to outsiders. Even when you advanced some time ago, I gave you the elixir refined by Master to improve your strength. But he's not one of us. Even if he follows us, it's impossible for him to be like you. That's why I was so wise to choose to follow Master. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm doing now." She couldn't help sighing. She really felt that the decision she made at that time was the most correct one. There's still room for improvement in your strength. What's more, you've got such a treasure. Archery can be used to attack from a distance, which is also your specialty. You have to work hard to improve. You know that there are no weak people around Master. If you stay stagnant, you'll be assigned to other places one day." Hearing this, Yi Feifei nodded seriously and said, "Well, I know. I'll work hard to improve my strength. I won't disgrace you." Seeing this, Du Fan didn't say anything more. At this time, they saw that the family had left, and Wang Yu was coming towards them. "We can go," Wang Yu said, looking at the two people. "Then let's go." Du Fan didn't let him rest for long. Instead, he turned around and walked into the depths. He said, "My master has already found traces of the ancient nine-tailed spirit fox. Now, he is searching for it. He wants us to meet up with him as soon as possible. You can follow him." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward. His figure was extremely fast. "Follow me." Yi Feifei followed Du and waved to Wang Yu. Even though her strength had improved, she couldn't keep up with Du Fan's footsteps, but at least she wouldn't be left behind too. Even so, he didn't make a sound. Even so, he didn't make a sound, he didn't make a sound. But even so, he didn't make a sound, he didn't make a sound, he didn't make a sound, he didn't make a sound even so, he didn't make a sound, he didn't, he, and his T. He. Fant. Behind he, to, s. Was to follow was he, a. 3 days later, Wang Yu, who was already very haggard, staggered. She held the tree beside her to prevent herself from falling. Chapter 42-34. Du Fan stopped and looked back. Then he came to Wang Yu's side. "I'm fine. I can keep walking," Wang Yu said. His lips were dry and cracked. Because the injury on his back had not fully recovered and he had no time to rest, his face was very pale. After a few days, he had lost a lot of weight. "Take a rest," Du Fan said. "We should be near the place the master said. I'll check the map again. You sit down and rest for a while." Hearing this, Yi Feifei helped Wang Yu sit down, gave him water, and said, "Take off your coat. I'll help you change the dressing." In such an environment, it was possible for the wound to worsen if he sweated all day without taking a bath. No, it's okay. I'll be fine after a rest, Wang Yu said, shaking his head. Seeing this, Yi Feifei did not say anything more. He sat next to Du Fan, who was looking at the map, and asked, "Brother Du, are we almost there?" "Well, it should be in front." Du Fan pointed to the mountain in front and said, "According to Ling Shuang, it's that mountain. Let's wait for the master there." "Well, let's go." Wang Yu gritted his teeth and stood up. Seeing this, Du Fan said, "Take a rest." He paused and asked, "Is your wound getting worse?" "It's much better with the dressing, but I accidentally bumped into it yesterday. But it's okay. I'll clean it up when we get there." "Feifei, please help me with the dressing," Wang Yu said. Hearing this, Du Fan said, "Feifei, take off his clothes and check the wound." "Okay." Yi Feifei answered and said to Wang Yu, "I'll take off your coat and check your wound. You can't stay like this. The wound needs to be treated first." Finally, under their persuasion, he took off his clothes. When they saw the inflamed wound on his back, they both frowned. The wound was more serious than they had imagined. Some parts had already started to fester, and the surrounding area was red and swollen. They guessed that the wound had not been cleaned properly and was infected. "We have to find a water source and let him wash his entire body. Otherwise, his injuries won't heal," Yi Feifei said with a frown. "Then let's go to the front. There is a water source ahead where the masters gather." Du Fan said, looking at Wang Yu, "Let's go. Hold on a little longer." "All right." Thus, he followed them and continued forward. Ever since Fengjiu found traces of the nine-tailed spiritual fox that day, he had been searching the surrounding area. The search area was also expanding day by day. However, after a few days, there was still no news. On this day, knowing that Du Fan and the others would be arriving soon, Ling Shuang and Ling Shuang went to the place where they had agreed to meet. When they arrived, they saw a few people washing themselves at the source of the spring. Ling Shuang and Ling Shuang looked at each other and walked forward. "When did you arrive?" Fengjiu asked, walking towards them. "Master." Du Fan and Yi Feifei turned around. When they saw her, they smiled and said, "We just arrived." "Ghost Doctor." Wang Yu cupped her hands and saluted her with her upper body naked. Looking at the wound on Wang Yu's back, Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and said, "Why is it so serious?" "The wound is inflamed. It's a long story." Wang Yu smiled bitterly. Chapter 42-35. Du Fan followed and left. Yi Feifei helped him clean up the wound before walking to Fengjiu with Wang Yu. "Ghost Doctor." Wang Yu called and looked at her. "Turn around," Fengjiu said. He thought she wanted to see his wound, so he answered and turned his back to her. Du Fan, Yi Feifei and Ling Shuang stood aside and watched without speaking. Fengjiu raised his hand, and the spiritual power in his palm surged. A green light diffused out and slowly covered the wound on Wang Yu's back. The red and swollen wound gradually healed with the green lotus spirit in his palm. Wang Yu only felt a cool feeling between the skin and flesh on his back, which was extremely comfortable. He wanted to look back, but because the people behind him didn't let him look back, he could only stand still as much as possible. As time went by, he didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the wound on his back didn't hurt at all. "It's okay," Fengjiu said, taking back his hand and exhaling softly. Wang Yu heard the sound and turned around. As soon as he moved, he didn't feel the pain of the wound on his back. He was stunned and touched his back, only to find that the wound on his back seemed to be healed. This. What's this? My master helped you heal your injuries, are you still not happy?" Du Fan glanced at him and said, "Why haven't you put on your clothes yet?" Therefore, Wang Yu quickly came to her senses and quickly took out a new set of clothes to put on. While suppressing the doubts and shock in her heart, she bowed to Feng Nine and said, "Thank you, Ghost Doctor." Feng Jiawei nodded before looking at Du Fan and the others. She said, "Leng Shuang and I have been searching in this area for the past few days. However, other than that day when I saw the nine-tailed fox, I haven't seen it again. However, I'm certain that it's still here. I just don't know where it has hidden itself. That's why I asked you to come over to tell you to search in different areas from today onwards. Don't miss any place where the nine-tailed fox might appear." "Well, Master, you divide the area," Leng Hua said and took out a map. So, they found a place to sit down. Fengjiu drew the area and asked them to search. Finally, he said, "If you find the trace of the nine-tailed fox, don't disturb it. Inform me at once and tell me where the nine-tailed fox is found." "Yes." They answered and then left in different teams. Fengjiu and Leng Shuang searched in 2 areas respectively, and Du Fan led Yi Feifei and Wang Yu to another area. At this time, none of them knew how long they would have to search in the depths of the Cyan Devil Forest. The nine-tailed fox seemed to know that Fengjiu and others were looking for it, so it hid well and didn't show up easily. The days passed while they were searching and hiding. Half a year later, in the depths of the Cyan Devil Forest, early in the morning, a bolt of lightning struck down, shaking the entire sky. After the first bolt of lightning struck down, the second bolt of lightning also struck down. Chapter 42-36. Boom! When the third heavenly thunder gathered a strong airflow and struck down, the defensive bounded domain around Fengjiu was broken. The heavenly thunder fell on her body. At that moment, she ran the spiritual power in her hands. The vitality of the surrounding trees and the spiritual qi in the Cyan Demon Forest all flowed toward her and was absorbed into her body. As she withdrew her aura, the aura in the surrounding air gradually returned to normal. She exhaled softly and opened her eyes. Du Fan, Leng Shuang, and Yi Feifei saw this and immediately stepped forward. "Master." Wang Yu came to her senses and quickly followed them. "Congratulations, Master. Your strength has finally recovered to the Divine King level." Du Fan congratulated her with a smile. He was very happy. Since that battle, Master's strength had regressed. Now, she finally broke through again and her strength returned to the Divine King level. "Congratulations, Master." Leng Shuang and Yi Feifei also said. "Congratulations, Dr. Ghost." Wang Yu also congratulated her. In the past 6 months, he had followed them. Although his strength had not improved as much as Yi Feifei's, it was still much faster than before. It could be said that whether it was his strength or his combat strength, they had all improved as he had expected. This also proved that he had made the right choice to stay here with them. After a while, Fengjiu stood up. She looked into the depths of the forest and asked, "Have you found anything these days?" They were silent and shook their heads. "No, there is still no news." They had been here for 8 to 9 months, but up until now, other than the time when their master met the nine-tailed spirit fox, no one else had seen it. Hearing this, Fengjiu frowned slightly. She looked into the depths of the forest and no one knew what she was thinking. "Master, we have searched everywhere. In the past 6 months, we have almost searched the areas you assigned us twice, but we still haven't found the nine-tailed fox. Could it have escaped to another place?" Du Fan asked. "We can't keep looking like this. Let me think about it." She turned around and walked towards the water source alone. When she came to the water source, she scooped up a handful of water and washed her face. The cool spring water gradually calmed her mind. She took off her boots and soaked her feet in the water. She watched her jade-white feet paddle in the water and watched as the spring water flowed down through the cracks between the rocks. She sat there for more than half a day. It was not until noon when Ling Xuan came to her with food that she came back to her senses. The forest was so big, and there were only a few of them. It was easier said than done to find the nine-tailed spirit fox. Even if the nine-tailed spiritual fox was in the area that they had marked out, if they were not careful, the nine-tailed spiritual fox would pass by them. If they continued to search like this, they would not be able to find it even after a few years. She followed Ling Xuan to the bonfire and lowered her head to think. Suddenly, an idea flashed through her mind. She stopped in her tracks and her eyes lit up. Why didn't I think of it? She slapped her forehead and a big smile appeared on her face. She quickly walked forward. Ling Xuan saw this and asked, "Master, what did you think of?" Chapter 42-37. She came to the fire and sat down. Looking at the meat they were roasting on the fire, she took a small knife and cut a piece, saying, "Eat first, I'll tell you after you've eaten." Hearing this, the few people who wanted to ask looked at each other and did not speak again. They ate the roasted meat first. After filling their stomachs, Fengjiu asked with a smile, "Why do you think we haven't found the nine-tailed fox spirit even after we've divided the area?" The few of them looked at each other, saying, "We only have a few people, and the nine-tailed fox spirit is not hidden very well." "That's right, if we want to search for it in this endless forest, it's undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Since that's the case, why don't we get the beasts to help us?" Her eyes were full of smiles, saying, "We don't know where the nine-tailed fox spirit is hiding, but the beasts in the depths of this forest know. As long as we start with them, we should be able to get news of the nine-tailed fox spirit very quickly." Hearing this, Du Fan asked, "But how do we get the beasts to help us? We've been here for more than half a year, and the beasts here have all run away when they see us. They don't even dare to meet us. Even if we want to roast meat to eat, we have to put in a lot of effort to catch a beast." Because they had been searching in this area, it could be said that the beasts in this area had already treated them as beasts with their tails between their legs. Wherever they appeared, there would be no beasts around. Fengjiu looked at Du Fan, saying, "Find the strongest beast in this area, and let it give the order to search. I remember that there's a divine beast here, you guys find it." Hearing this, the few of them looked at each other, and finally answered, "Yes." They roughly knew what she meant, so they split into several groups and quickly went in different directions. Finding the nine-tailed fox spirit was more difficult, but finding a divine beast in the depths of this forest was extremely easy. After a day, Du Fan and the others tied up a divine beast in front of Fengjiu. "Master, we found a divine beast. Do you think this one will do?" Du Fan said as he looked at the tied-up tiger beast. Fengjiu stepped forward and waved his hand, indicating for them to retreat to the side. Then, he came to the side of the tiger beast. The divine beast was already gigantic, and with the addition of the tiger, it could be said that if it were to collide, no one would be able to block the force. He gently patted the tiger beast's head and said, "I'll give you two choices. 1. Help me find the ancient nine-tailed spirit fox and I'll let you go. I'll also give you a pill to increase your strength and let you enter the peak of the divine beast stage. 2. I'll kill you." When the tiger beast heard this, its eyes widened. "You're going too far. You don't have a choice." It had listened carefully, but it didn't expect Fengjiu to mean this. "How is it? Do you want to do it or not?" Fengjiu asked, his voice cold. He played with a dagger that he had just taken out, and the threat was very obvious. "Don't waste your time. Even if you find the nine-tailed spirit fox, it's not easy to deal with," the tiger beast said, and glared at Fengjiu. "Furthermore, I don't know where it's hiding. Even if it knew, it wouldn't dare to say it. Is that so?" Chapter 42-38. This human possessed an ancient aura. It could be said that from the day she came to the depths of the azure demonic forest, the tiger knew about it. It was precisely because it knew that it had been hiding far away, but it did not expect to be caught. It lowered its head and asked, "You already have an ancient divine beast, so why do you want to catch the nine-tailed spiritual fox?" It was not that this human did not have a contracted beast. On the contrary, she had more than one contracted beast, and they were all very powerful. Since that was the case, why did she spend half a year looking for the ancient nine-tailed spiritual fox? Fengjiu glanced at it indifferently and said, "This is not something you should care about." She stretched out her hand and patted its head, saying, "You should think about it. If I catch it, your strength will increase by another level. Then you will be the most powerful existence in the azure demonic forest. Isn't that good?" The tiger beast lowered its head as it listened. It was naturally aware of this point, but it was still worried. If the nine-tailed spirit fox knew about this, it was afraid that it would die miserably. After all, its strength was far inferior to its own. However, the temptation was so great. How is it? Fengjiu asked with a trace of impatience in her voice. If not for the fact that the tiger beast had lived here for a long time and had a certain amount of power, she would not have looked for it. Instead, she would have asked the cloud-swallowing beast and Lao Bai to search for it. However, even though the cloud-swallowing beast was powerful, they were not local tyrants. "All right, I promise you. Hurry up and untie me so that I can go back and ask the other beasts to help find it." As the tiger beast spoke, it twisted its body and tugged at the immortal binding rope on its body. Fengjiu waved her hand and kept the immortal binding rope. The tiger beast stretched its back and looked at Fengjiu, saying, "We are only responsible for finding the places where it has appeared and where it is hiding. Once we find it, we will secretly tell you. As for catching it, you have to do it yourself. We beasts will not interfere." Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled, "All right, that's it. I don't expect you to help me catch it. Once you find it, don't disturb it. Just tell me the location." Thus, the man and beast decided. Seeing that the tiger beast had left, Yi Feifei asked, "Master, aren't you worried that it won't come back? What if it lies to us?" "It won't. Because tigers are the kings of the mountains." Now that it was suppressed by the ancient nine-tailed spiritual fox, it naturally would not miss such an opportunity. Fengjiu chuckled and looked away, saying, "All right, let's get ready." Next, they rested and adjusted their bodies. On the other side, in a hidden cave, the nine-tailed spiritual fox had just come out of the cave when it saw the beasts not far away. It felt strange but did not think much of it and leaped into the depths of the forest. That human in red robes wanted to catch it. It was simply a fool's dream. Half a year had passed and it was still safe and sound. Those humans did not know where it was hiding. Chapter 42-39. After the tiger beast received the news, it went to the place where Fengjiu and the rest were to look for them. "I found the ancient mythical beast. It's in an underground cave 2 mountains away from here," the tiger beast said as it stared at Fengjiu. "You said you would give me the advancement pill." Fengjiu was overjoyed when she heard this. She stood up and said, "Lead the way. We'll talk when we find it." The tiger beast hesitated for a moment, but finally decided to lead them there. It said unhappily, "Follow me." As it said that, it leaped forward. "Let's go," Fengjiu said to the few people beside her and followed it. The group followed the tiger beast into the depths of the forest. After they crossed 2 mountains, the sky was already dark. The tiger beast leading the way stopped at this moment. "I won't go ahead. You guys go ahead and find it yourselves." Even though it was a mythical beast, it was still afraid of the ancient mythical beast. Leading them here was already the limit. If the ancient nine-tailed spirit fox knew that it was the tiger beast that led them here, thinking of this, it couldn't help but shudder and step back. Fengjiu glanced at it and said to Du Fan, "Bring them to the surroundings and set up a formation. Be quiet and don't alarm the spirit fox. I'll go ahead and take a look." As she said that, she restrained her aura and went ahead. The tiger beast wanted to stop her and ask her to give it the pill, but seeing her go ahead, it thought for a moment, swung its tail, snorted and left. Actually, it was one thing to have the pill. With its mythical beast rank, if this ancient mythical beast wasn't here, it would still be able to do whatever it wanted in this forest. Fengjiu went forward and released her divine sense to search carefully until she found a hidden underground cave. The cave was only big enough for one person to squeeze in, but the space inside was huge. However, when she scanned the underground cave with her divine sense, she discovered that there was no trace of the ancient spirit fox. Therefore, she went to Du Fan and the others. "Don't set up the formation here. Go set it up over there. Also, after setting up the formation, hide your aura and don't run around. That ancient spirit fox isn't in the cave right now. It should be back soon." She instructed them to go to the other side. "Alright," they responded and followed Du Fan to the other side to set up the formation. When it came to setting up formations, apart from Fengjiu, Du Fan was the most proficient. The rest of them were only learning from him. Fengjiu looked around, and when his gaze landed on a tall tree, he jumped up and checked the surroundings. On the other side, the tiger beast had already left quietly. Under Du Fan's lead, the others had set up a formation around them. At this moment, Fengjiu, who was on the tree, transmitted his voice to them. "That nine-tailed spirit fox is back. Quickly hide." Hearing her words, Du Fan quickly led the others to hide. He hid his aura and hid under the cover of the night. Fengjiu, who was on the tree, was dressed in red, but the cover of the pitch-black night formed a very good camouflage. She hid her aura and looked at the white figure that was shuttling through the forest in the dark night. She couldn't hide her excitement. After searching for so long, they had finally found the ancient nine-tailed spirit fox. Chapter 42-40. She felt that this nine-tailed spiritual fox was the most suitable one to be her precious daughter's natal contract beast. It was one thing to see it in the painting, but now she saw it with her own eyes. As it ran and jumped, its 9 snow-white tails swayed behind it. It was so ostentatious and beautiful. As the nine-tailed spirit fox got closer and closer, its footsteps gradually slowed down. From time to time, it would look around and sniff the surroundings. Seeing this, her eyes moved slightly. She quietly skimmed through the night and went to the back to block its escape route. Even if it really sensed something, she would force it into the range of the bounded domain. In this way, she would not have to worry about it escaping again. Perhaps the nine-tailed spirit fox had really sensed the presence of a human. It stopped its hooves and lowered its body to look in front of it. Its pair of blue eyes stared intently in front of it. However, it retreated step by step. After a few breaths, it suddenly turned around and ran away. Fengjiu didn't continue concealing herself when she saw this, and she directly flashed out from within the veil of night. At the same time, she flicked her sleeve, and the 2 cloud-devouring beasts and Senior White ran out from within the space to help obstruct the ancient nine-tailed fox. "You can't escape. Lie down obediently," Senior White shouted as he leaped up, transforming from a horse into a white dragon as he charged forward. The 2 cloud-swallowing beasts growled. They did not go forward, but did not retreat. They just guarded it tightly to prevent it from escaping. Fengjiu looked at the nine-tailed spiritual fox that turned around and looked at him while retreating. He could not help but smile and said, "Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. I just want you to be my daughter's contracted beast." Chi. The white fox exhaled 2 breaths. It stared at Fengjiu fiercely. It suddenly turned around and ran in the direction behind it. Seeing this, Fengjiu chased after it. It crashed into the tactical matrix and wanted to break out. However, it was bounced back by the tactical matrix. It jumped and landed steadily. It squeaked and stared at Du Fan and the others who came out from the darkness. Finally, it leaped into the underground cave. Not good. Fengjiu exclaimed when he saw this and quickly rushed forward. She didn't think that there was only one exit in this underground cave. Perhaps there were several exits inside. If they let it escape, they might never be able to catch it again. With a flick of her hand, she threw out a silver net towards the ancient 9-tailed spirit fox. It was so fast that it could be said that it was completed in an instant. The 9-tailed spirit fox entered the underground cave half a step slower. However, when it wanted to rush to the entrance of the cave, it was covered by a silver net. The silver net shrunk and trapped the 9-tailed spirit fox inside. Roar! It howled like a puppy and curled up its body. Its sharp claws flashed as it tried to tear the silver net apart, but it couldn't. Fengjiu walked forward quickly and couldn't help but smile. It seems that it's still a cub. We should be glad that it's only a cub. If it was an adult ancient 9-tailed spirit fox, it wouldn't be so easy to catch it. Du Fan and the others quickly came forward. Seeing the snow-white 9-tailed spirit fox struggling in the silver net, they couldn't help but smile happily. After such a long time, they finally caught the ancient spiritual fox. Chapter 42-41. Congratulations, Master, Leng Shuang and Yi Feifei also said. This time, the little master's contract beast was found. Ghost Doctor, is this ancient spiritual fox still a cub? Wang Yu asked, looking at the little white fox lying on the ground and staring at them after struggling to no avail. Looking at it from such a close distance, it was really beautiful. Whether it was the eyes, the fur, or the 9 tails, they were all so beautiful that people could not help but want to go up and touch it. It's still a cub, so it's not very powerful and can't transform into a human shape. However, it should be able to speak human language. Fengjiu said, squatting down to look at the snow fox, which was curled up in the silver net, and said with a smile, I'll find you a master. In this way, you can grow up with her. Chi. The 9-tailed fox on the ground showed its teeth and made a chi-chi sound, as if it was showing its resistance. It stared at Fengjiu and the others, and the next moment, its whole body suddenly emitted a snow-white light. This light was so dazzling that they could not help but close their eyes or block it with their hands. However, at that moment, Fengjiu, Du Fan, and the others felt the world in front of them spin. It was as if they had been sucked into some place, and they lost consciousness in an instant. When the light dissipated, not only had Fengjiu and the others disappeared, even Senior White, Tun Yun, and the others had disappeared. Even the ancient 9-tailed fox that was trapped by the silver net had disappeared as well. The vast area was completely empty, and it was as if they had never appeared at all. In the pitch-black forest, a gust of wind blew past, causing leaves to fall from the trees and scatter all around the area. A few hundred meters away from here, in the grass, the tiger beast was lying there with its eyes wide open. It watched as Fengjiu and the rest disappeared from where they were, along with the ancient 9-tailed spirit fox that had been captured. When the first ray of sunlight shone on the ground in the early morning, Fengjiu slowly opened his eyes. What came into his eyes was a sky that looked like burning clouds. Her chaotic thoughts cleared up in an instant. She leaped up and looked at the unconscious Du Fan and the rest lying around her, as well as the 9-tailed Arctic fox in the silver net. She remembered that the moment the light flashed, her whole body seemed to be sucked into some place. Almost instinctively, she put her contract beasts into the space. Then, everything went black and she didn't know anything. Now, She'd scanned the area with her divine sense and confirmed that Senior White and Tun Yun were within the space, so she was at ease. He got up and went to Ling Shuang's side to check on her. Then, he took out a bottle of medicine and placed it under her nose for her to smell. Not long after, she slowly woke up. "Master? Well, it's good that you're awake. Wake them up too." She handed the medicine to Ling Shuang and walked towards the ancient nine-tailed spirit fox that was still lying motionless on the ground. "Get up." She kicked lightly with her foot, and the nine-tailed spirit fox moved a little. In the next moment, it wanted to jump up vigilantly, but it was caught in the silver net and could only roll back to the ground. "It's good that you're awake. Let me ask you, where did you take us?" Fengjiu asked, her gaze falling on the nine-tailed spirit fox. She remembered that this ancient nine-tailed spirit fox had a hidden ability, which was to travel through time and space, and to any place in an instant. Chapter 42-42. This was no longer the Cyan Demon Forest. Moreover, the spiritual aura in the air here was extremely weak, and the weather was extremely hot. Looking around, the ground was dry and cracked. Not to mention any trees, weeds, and forests, there was not a single living creature other than them. The nine-tailed fox turned its blue eyes and looked at the surrounding environment, but it did not speak. Instead, it closed its eyes like an angry child and did not want to talk to Fengjiu at all. "Master, where are we?" Du Fan came over, rubbed his neck and brushed the mud and dust off his body. He looked around with a surprised face. "I don't know where we are. This fox doesn't speak at all," Fengjiu said, frowning slightly. He did not bother to ask the nine-tailed fox anymore. Instead, he looked around and said, "Let's find someone to ask about this place." "Okay." Everyone answered and stood around. Fengjiu glanced at the nine-tailed fox. He flicked his sleeve and put it into the space. Then he said to them, "Let's go. Let's go ahead and have a look." Then he stepped forward. Fengjiu walked fast in the front, and the people behind him also followed quickly. Du Fan and the others knew that she had a space, but when Wang Yu saw that she could put the nine-tailed fox into the space without a contract, she was slightly surprised. However, she did not ask much and just thought that she should have some powerful space treasure. The current situation made him have no other thoughts. He saw that the people in front of him walked fast, so he also followed them. However, the road seemed to have no end. There was no end to it, and the weather was getting hotter and hotter. Even though they were all cultivators, at this time, they couldn't help but sweat all over their clothes. They were sweating profusely from the heat. "Master, the weather here seems to be a bit wrong. It shouldn't be so hot," Du Fan said and raised his sleeve to wipe the sweat on his forehead. Fengjiu replied, "Something is definitely not right. The main thing is that we don't even know where we are." She stopped walking and said to them, "Take a break and drink some water." Everyone stopped to rest. After drinking some water to calm themselves down, they continued to walk. Seeing that there was no sign of them, Fengjiu directly flew forward on his glazed feather. The few people behind him also took out their magic tools and flew forward. However, what they didn't expect was that as time passed, they calculated that it should be sunset, but there was no sign of the sun setting in the sky. The weather was still so hot, and the sky was still as hot as noon. It should be evening now. The sun should be setting. As Ling Shuang spoke, he looked at the sun in the sky and said, "That sun doesn't seem to move. It just hangs there. This place is really strange," Du Fan said. Because of the heat in the air, when they looked at the distant place, the heat in the air was slightly distorted, and a city loomed. "Master, there seems to be a city in front," Du Fan said and looked ahead. Then he sped up and went forward. Chapter 42-43. Master, why does it seem like there's no end here? And there's no one here. Yi Feifei said, swallowing his saliva and looking up. He only felt that the sun was giving him a headache. They had been exposed to the sun for a day, walking in front and flying in the back. But even so, after a long time, their bodies could not bear it. Moreover, it should be night, but the sun and moon had not yet risen. This kind of psychological torture was even more torturous. I don't know what's going on either. We can only continue to move forward and see if there's an oasis. Fengjiu said, looking ahead. Flying in this desert, looking up, there was only sand, as if there was no end to this place, making people gradually feel anxious. Master, was the fantasy city we saw earlier a mirage? Du Fan asked, looking at Fengjiu beside him. The illusory city that seemed to be right in front of them had long disappeared as they approached it. However, the scene looked very real, just like the mirages that he had seen in the books before. That's right. Fengjiu replied, saying, that mirage usually appears in the extremely hot desert, or on the surface of the sea, but generally, this scene means that this place exists. Perhaps, it's not far from us, or perhaps, it's very far from us. She said slowly, looking at the bright sun in the sky, saying, we've been walking for a day and a night, but this place still looks like it's daytime, which reminds me of a place. What place? Du Fan asked. The nightless heaven. Fengjiu said slowly, frowning slightly, saying, according to ancient records, in the 3,000 worlds, there's a place called the nightless heaven. Here, there's no night, only day, and the sun never sets in the west, but the moon still rises. However, under the sunlight, even if the moon appears, very few people can see it. Ancient records say that the nightless heaven lacks spiritual power, and the weather is hot all year round. The people here live in an abyss of suffering, but I didn't expect that we would come here. This ancient nine-tailed spirit fox's ability is not small, it can actually let us travel through the world to another place. If that's the case, it shouldn't be difficult for it to send us back, right? Du Fan asked, looking at Fengjiu. Fengjiu smiled bitterly, saying, you don't know this ancient nine-tailed spirit fox is still a cub. Now, it used up its remaining power to send us here. I guess, even if we want to go back now, it can't. Even though it was an ancient mythical beast, its cub's strength was still limited. It would not be able to do something as difficult as shuttling through space in a short period of time. Then, we can't go back. Yi Feifei couldn't help but ask. That won't be the case. Fengjiu smiled, saying, my strength has recovered, and I'm the master of this world. It won't be difficult for me to leave this place, but it will be a bit troublesome. However, once the nine-tailed spirit fox recovers, it can take us away. The prerequisite is that it is willing to take us back. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.